Welcome back to part 4 of the 2020 MMA Prospect Series featuring the welterweights. Some fun facts about today's video. The fight record: combined 290 wins against only 16 losses for the 31 fighters featured in this video. And we also have fighters from 17 different countries we're going to talk about. Some of these guys are very high level, ready for the next step. Some of the guys are middle of the road. And some of the guys are very raw and new to the game, but nonetheless, 31 great talents. The welterweight division was stacked. I had the number down to 208 fighters from, countless lists. And then from that 208, we narrowed it down to 31 guys. And just so everybody knows, my list is my list. There's no ranking, no order to these guys. They're not necessarily, some people may not say they're the best 31 prospects. There's lots of great fighters out there, but the 31 guys that I want to talk about. Because of such a large amount of fighters, this video will probably, some of the fighters will cruise by pretty fast. And then again, if you're new to my channel, the rules for these videos are no UFC experience, no Contender Series experience, no TUF, no Bellator, no PFL. Also, you're very rare to see somebody from Risen or 1FC, very rare. And you will not see any of the big names from a promotion, say like KSW, that's a fairly big promotion. You won't see any champions from those organizations. And again, any fighter that's been mentioned in the past on my channel, I know I've been away for a number of years, but any fighter that's been mentioned in the past will not be on any of these videos. So with further ado, let's get started. Again, hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check out the description below for links to those sites. And also, if you're new to my channel, all of these fighters, there will be video highlights of fights and whatnot in the description below, so be sure to check them out. Some great highlights of some great fighters in this video. So, nonetheless, let's get started. The first guy we're going to talk about is Magomed Burkhaev. 26 years old, 6'2", 170 pounds. He's a big welterweight. Fights out of Alligator FT in Russia. 13 wins and no losses. I think some sites had him at 14-1, but those extra 2 fights were amateur fights. So he is 13-0 as a professional. 2 knockouts, 8 submissions. Look at some of his key wins. He's got a big KO win over Bellator veteran Bert Cooper, was a great knockout. Previously undefeated and currently 15-3 vet Sharaf Delahumaradov. He's beaten UFC veteran Jesse Taylor. 13-3 Stanislav Velasco. And he's beat the recent Risen Grand Prix winner and a beast in his own right, Tahir Abdullaev, who's 18-3, who had that recent victory over Pitbull to win the Grand Prix. He also has a nice win over 22-10 vet Cyril Rodriguez, who also has a win over UFC veteran and PFL finalist David Michaud. So this gives you an idea of the level of competition that this guy's beat. Great fighter. Check out the video section below, or description below, for some great videos, including that knockout victory over Bert Cooper. It was a great fight and the crowd was really into it. Burkhaev is very talented, dangerous, and a high-level fighter. Plus, he's very well-rounded. He has strong wrestling and he's got a very nice double leg takedown to set up to get close and send the fight to the ground. And once he's on the ground, he's very dangerous from a submission standpoint, with a variety of ways to finish the fight. He's got a deadly armbar. He can also finish you off his back from the triangle position. Plus, he's shown a wide variety of submission victories thus far in his early career, which is the bread and butter of his game. But also, as shown, he has KO power in that left hand. He's got, in the video section, I think I have 2 videos where he has the knockout victory with that left hand. Plus, he throws very nice, accurate, and hard low kicks. His punching and boxing will probably be the biggest area of improvement. But he had a 2-year layoff. He had broke his arm, and he actually went and got it fixed. And the doctor fixed it improperly, so he had to get it broke again and fixed again. So, I mean, that 2-year gap can do a lot to a guy. But he's back now, And fighting in the ACA, again, I talked about this in past videos, that ACA organization in Russia is very, very tough and stacked. And there's some real rough characters in it. So he's going to get a lot of tough fights in that organization. At 13-0, though, I mean, I really see this guy being able to be picked up soon. I'd love to see him in the UFC. Part of me tells me the PFL is going to come out with an offer fairly soon. But either way, PFL, for me, more preferably the UFC, but he'd be a great addition. He puts on exciting fights, and I sure love to see him. So again, check him out. Mukhamed Berkhamov, great fighter, and a great way to start this video off. Number 2 on the list, and forgive me, folks, because some of the names I'm going to get a little bit inaccurate here because they're hard to pronounce for me being an English guy. But the second fighter is Aliaskhab Khizriev. 29 years old, so he's on the bubble of that prospect. I mean, he's pushing 30, which to me is real cutoff for a prospect, but he's 29, 5'10", 170, fights out of Russia. Team Shishka Bekov, 12 wins, no losses, 5 knockouts, 4 submissions. Victories. He's got the big destruction of UFC veteran Uzair Abdurakov. Watch that video, utter destruction. The fight was a minute. He's beaten the very tough Uzair Abdurakov. Abdurakov is a big global name outside of UFC and Bellator. He's fought in M1, fought in 1FC, and he's beaten 10-5 Magomed Burkhaev twice. So I mean, from a competition standpoint, he did have some lower level opponents, but he's beaten some key guys, and that win over Uzair was great. The video section, I think I've attached 4 or 5 videos. Check it out. And again, check out that fight against Paul Harris. Highly paced, exciting fighter. And this guy's a beast. Obviously, wrestling is his bread and butter. But he's got that classic smothering wrestling style. And he does and can finish fights with, stopping 9 of his opponents at a 12 in a variety of different ways. Both by KO and submission. And of course, that devastating beatdown of Paul Harris. And again, check out the videos below. He does get a little wild at times, a little wild in striking. It could a very real technical guy could give him problems, but again, I think he can shore that up. And at 29, for me, the time is now. He has been off for a year and a half or a couple of years, I believe, but he's due to make his comeback. But at 29, maybe he comes back, gets one warm-up fight, and then I'd like to see him step right into the UFC. Even Bellator, but for me, more so the UFC. I think a lot of these Russians now are building up huge momentum. And I think he'd be a fan favorite. So both of these first 2 guys would be great. Number 3 on the list. Very excited to mention this guy. Again, sticking with Russia, and that's going to be a theme of this video. I think we have a dozen or so Russians out of the 31 fighters we're going to talk about. But the next guy on the list is Eldar Eldarov. 28 years old, so the time is now. 5'9.5", 170. I believe his last fight he fought at this new super lightweight division in Brave FC at the 165-pound weight. Dagestan fighter, KHK MMA team, 12 wins, 1 loss, 1 TKO, 8 submissions. You see a few videos. He's got a win over another monster prospect we're going to talk about a little later on, in Mounir Lazzez, who's 9-1. He's beaten 13-8 Brian Hoy and 13-7 Henrique Gomez. One real interesting fact about this guy: the only loss of his career was close to 11 years ago, and it was against one of the best, if not the best, pound-for-pound fighter in the world today, in Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yes, that's correct. That's his only loss. And not only is this his only loss in his career was to Khabib, but apparently they're close friends, and he trains under Khabib's father. And I'm surprised. This guy's a pretty decorated Sambo practitioner in Russia, and I'm surprised he hasn't been picked up already, because he talks identical to Khabib. He's got that same personality, and I believe he's gone back and forth from welterweight to lightweight, so you may see him fight at the lightweight division again. But he's got that smothering wrestling, classic Dagestan style, extensive combat Sambo background. I think he started wrestling at age 6, something along those lines, as so many kids in Dagestan did. And that 2 big things in families, for kids there were sports and studying. And this guy is actually a lawyer, so pretty smart fighter as well. He's the head coach at KHK MMA, and also He coaches the national Banran team. He throws some nasty elbows for the mount, and he also finishes fights via submissions in many different ways. 8 subs in his 12 wins. He's also improved his striking quite a bit over the last couple of fights. And, I think he could be a pretty formidable MMA fighter. It would be great to see this guy right now. I'd love to see him in the UFC. He's 28. He's approaching his prime, if not there. And hopefully that can happen. I mean, with the connections of Khabib and Khabib's father and those kind of things, you would say this guy with a good chance he'd be a lock. Next on the list, Khamzat Chimaev. 26 years old, 6'2", 170. Big welterweight. Sweden, fights out of Sweden by the way of Czechia. All-Stars Training Center with the likes of Alexander Gustafsson and Latifi. A couple of big names there. 6 wins, no losses, 4 TKOs, 2 submissions. He's also had a very tough fight against Jair Alzaver coming up, a Brave CF37. That's a 14-3 fighter. I think that fight's April the 18th, so coming up right away here. Key wins. Beat some good guys. 5-1 Wazada Halogwa. 9-1 Ikayem Aztekarov. 8-4 Sidney Wheeler, and 5-1 Marco Kissick. No current opponents that he's fought has had losing records. The combined record of the other 2 guys is 9-8. Again, check out the videos. I think you have 4 or 5 videos of him. Some pretty cool highlights. He's definitely a can't-miss prospect. He's big, huge for welterweight, athletic. He's got a wrestling background, and he finishes fights. He's wrestled in Sweden and has fought at both welterweight and middleweight. And his wrestling transitions well in MMA. He has power, uses his long frame well from a jab and low kick perspective. He has some very hard and dangerous ground and pound and some very good submission talent as well. At the end of the day, he finishes fights and is an interesting prospect for sure. He comes out guns blazing. That's something he might want to tighten up a little bit as he gains more experience, a little less while at the start. But he's beaten some good opponents. And definitely, he's a guy I think at this point could fight in the UFC or Bellator. Maybe another win or 2. He's only got 6 in his career. But with his training partners, his physical capabilities, I think he'd be a great fit for any bigger organization. So check him out. Number 5 on the list. This may be the oldest guy in today's video. We got a lot of younger folks, but Mounir Lazzez, nicknamed the Sniper, and for good reason. 30 years old, I believe, 6'1 or 6'2 at 170. Big big welterweight for sure. Although I believe he fought Eldar Eldarov at that 165 super lightweight division, the newly formed. Fights out of Tunisia, Team Nogaria, Dubai. 9 wins, 1 loss, 8 knockout victories. Again, the only loss was a decision loss to the great Eldar Eldarov mentioned earlier. Key wins, 4-1 Dmitry Hamakov, 9-5 Christoph Van Dijk, and 7-2 Anna Siri Munir. Check out the videos. I think, again, there's 4 or 5 of this guy. Some great knockouts, some good highlights. And this guy really is a highlight reel knockout artist in his own right. Likes to keep the fight standing, although he has shown moments where he's very explosive, very aggressive in his kicks, as you'll see. He has multiple head kick KOs, throws very nice knees from the clinch, and also displays some good aggressive ground and pound. Decent takedowns and works well from top position. Again, his only loss was the great Eldar Eldarov mentioned earlier. So a high-level wrestler may be somebody who'll give him problems. But he's very athletic. He's high-paced, action-orientated, fun to watch. And at 30 years of age, the time is now. Number 6 on the list. Swinging over to Poland. Mateusz Rebecki, 27 years old, 5'7", 170, but I believe he's transitioned to lightweight. Nonetheless, we had him on the welterweight video, so we're going to stick with him. Fights out of Poland, Berserkers team. 11 wins, 1 loss, 5 knockouts, 5 submissions. Key wins, he's beaten some great fighters with great records. So 12-2 Magomed Magomedov, 13-2 Kate Brito, 12-3-1 Uzair Abdurakov, 9-3 Lucas Coperera, 21-7 Marian Zglowski, and 6-2 Oleg Urbrekov. I do have a couple of videos you might want to check out. He has a smothering wrestling style, and he closes distance very well to get that takedown. Once he's on the ground, he transitions well and sets up some very nasty elbows. And he likes getting that crucifix position. He splits guys open pretty quick. He's also very effective in the submission game as well. Again, 5 knockouts, 5 submissions, 10 finishes out of 11 victories. Very interesting and powerful prospect. And I expect to see this guy get an offer soon. I don't believe you'll see him fighting in the lower tier level in Poland and those places. I think you'll see him get the call. But an interesting prospect nonetheless. Moving on, as I said, we're going to have to kind of cruise through today's video. I'd like to keep it under an hour. Next on the list is Adam Proctor, 24 years old, 5'10", 170, fighting out of England, SGB South Shields, 12 wins, 1 loss, 6 submissions. Just had a recent victory over previously 7-1 Merdarish Flaminos a couple of nights ago. He's beaten 11-4 Olidi Satishi, 9-4 Angelo Ribeiro, 8-2 Ashley Reese. He's beaten Bellator veteran Nathan Jones and 12-4 Sam Bolt. Do have a couple of videos attached. Great jiu-jitsu, pretty decent judo. Closes the distance pretty well, and I think he's very close to a UFC shot. I really believe that. I know he's gunning for that. He's in the Cage Warriors now, but his goal is to get to the UFC. Great to clinch, uses the cage well, and he's very comfortable on his feet, even though that submission game and going the distance is his key to victories. But he's pretty comfortable on his feet, and he sets takedowns up pretty good. 4 first-round submissions, and most notably, out of all his submissions, I believe the rear naked choke for him is by far the slickest out of his talents. And I believe we'll see more of him soon. Adam Proctor. Next on the list. This guy kind of popped up out of nowhere for me. I believe he's pretty well highly unknown to a lot of the folks, say, in North America and Europe. Shido Bora Soto Espinera. 24 years old, 5'8", 170, 5 wins, no losses, 3 knockouts, 1 submission, fighting out of Angola. New generation MMA. Key wins, he hasn't fought a lot of high-level opponents. He's beaten 4-2 Ezo Franklin and 6-2 Heredes Alano. Check out his videos. There's one of his fights. He got some great slams, and also there's some in him in his IBJJF championship competition in jiu-jitsu. Under the radar, very, very athletic and a strong fighter. Slams all day. Loves the throws and has some ferocious ground and pound. Upon further research, it appears he's been involved in martial arts for some time now. Looks like he's signed with the Ares Fighting Championship. Looks to have completed in many grappling tournaments, such as the IBJJF Championship. So that adds to another dimension to his already pretty good game. It also looks like he's competed in kickboxing and Muay Thai competition, and he started at age 14. Stand-up department to me is where I haven't seen a ton of footage on him, but you know, if that is the most recent we could have in him, he's still a heck of a prospect, and you know, we could have a good guy in our hands. So let's hope he does get, you know, a few more fights and then get some exposure, and hopefully even this video gives him a few more eyeballs. And he's a really strong young guy, so he can make a difference. Next on the list, moving on to Canada. I believe this is the only Canadian fighter we have in today's video. Christien Savoie, 27 years old, 5'11", 170, really good size welterweight. I know Christian has fought at middleweight as well. Big kid. Mixed MTX Fight Academy, 8 wins, no losses, 5 knockouts, 3 submissions. Currently in the welterweight and middleweight champ in Elite 1 MMA, based out of New Brunswick, Canada. Key wins, I'd say 4-2 Pat Carroll, and his beat 9-6 Eldar Eldarov was a tough fight. The rest of his opponents, although tough, haven't had the best of records, and some of them haven't had a lot of experience. But nonetheless, I've seen a lot of his fights, and he's fought some pretty tough competitors. Check out the video section. You'll see his war against Keith, which was important because he did get clipped in that fight. But he, you know, so now as a guy that's undefeated, he knows what it's like to get hit, and he bounced back terrifically to stop his opponent. There's another video of him and his highlights that, you know, journalizes most of his fights as a professional. Christian started fighting in combat sports very early. I believe I've seen in some interviews that he started around the age of 6 in Taekwondo, and I believe MMA around 15 or 16 years of age. Christian is pretty well rounded game. He's very comfortable on his feet. If you watch his fights, technically he's pretty sound. Throws a decent jab and has, excuse me, also throws a nice short cross. and utilizes the low kick very effectively. And he's also a threat to use that high kick and also to the body. So getting back to his well-roundedness, he's a very powerful guy, and he can go the distance as well if need be. He likes to close that distance and get the fight to the ground, and he's shown he's got some good grappling capabilities. Not yet, you haven't seen him submit any opponents, but he sets up that ground and pound well. He transitions well and scrambles pretty decent. And he fights at a high pace and has shown that already to stop most of his opponents. And he's also very comfortable going the distance. And I know he's a hard worker and he's closing that gap. So I believe he's very close to a bigger promotion, mainly the UFC. I believe he's been offered a fight in the Contender Series, maybe more than once, I'm not sure. I know he had a hand injury, so correct me, I believe he had a contender offer and maybe another offer on the UFC, but I believe both times he couldn't fight because of injury. So this guy's on the radar already, and I'd be very surprised with another win if he doesn't get the call. I think at his age now, pushing that 27, 28, I think he's ready. And very interesting prospect, and Canada's in good need of an up-and-coming fighter. I think Christian's that guy. And we got a fight card coming up in Saskatoon in late June. I'm in Alberta myself, but we got a card coming up June 20th in Saskatoon, and that would be a tremendous opportunity for Christian to get a shot. So well-rounded fighter, again at 8-0 with the finishes. With the publicity he's had already, I believe we'll see this guy in the UFC very soon, and a very serious prospect. Next on the list, going back to Russia, Arsen Sultanov, 5'11", 170, 30 years old, 7 wins, no losses, 3 TKOs, 4 submissions, fighting out of Russia again, like I mentioned. Pat B, Sablinsky, Vitez, and the association he trains out of. Key victories, he's got a victory over UFC veteran Marcin Bendel. Other opponents have been very low level. However, he's in the ACA now, that organization, so the tough fights are along the way. I decided to include Sultanov on the list based on his win over Bandel and the fact that he's 7-0 with 7 finishes. He is 30, so I mean, right now I would say he's at his peak. He probably can shorten his technical skills up, but he's there as far as his athletic capabilities. He looks to be a patient fighter with power, good, hard, nice leg kicks. Plus, he looked pretty decent against Bandel on the ground with some ground and pound. Anybody who knows Bandel knows he's a monster on the ground. So for him to comfortably stay away from Bandel on the ground and apply that ground and pound, it was very impressive for me. And I also believe he's got a BJJ background. He may be a brown belt. So an interesting prospect to say the least. And just another excellent Russian fighter to add to the list. I believe he also competed in multiple jiu-jitsu tournaments and won medals in the Russian Natural Championships and also the Siberian Amateur Championships. So I believe he's got a pretty decent background in combat sports and transitioned nicely in MMA. Next on the list, and we're heading to USA for this guy, and I may be incorrect here, but this may be our only our only American on today's list. Matt Dixon. 24 years old, 5'10", 170, 9 wins, no losses, 5 TKOs, 1 submission. Big fight coming up. He just had a big fight March the 6th against Bellator veteran Justin Patterson. It's a great fight. It was a war, and he pulled out the victory in a close fight. And for a guy at his age, it was an excellent way to come through. WCF Tulsa is the organization he fights out of. Some other key victories beside Patterson. He's beaten 10-4 Braden Smith. And 4-2 Kalen Rayford. He's beaten Bellator veteran Brian Grinnell, Bellator veteran Tigaf Dooley, Bellator veteran Coleo Ford, and Bellator veteran Camille Haley. So he's beaten tons of ex-Bellator fighters. So right away that tells you, hey, if he beats those guys, he can fight Bellator today, no problem. And check out the video section. There's, I think, 3 or 4 fights that highlight some of the skills. Very athletic, strong, young, and aggressive fighter. Entertaining, high-paced, action-packed guy. I believe he started training at a very young age. Sounds like since the age of 6. Newer generation now in MMA, so he kind of fits that role. for myself at 41, my generation, we grew up to a specific, I don't know, a specific combat background, boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, where we see some of these young guys like Dixon kind of growing up, getting a taste of everything. So by the time he gets to age 20 or so, he's a beast because he has that extensive background. Matt has shown he can finish fights with his hands, especially with some very nasty ground and pound. And also he has some submission capabilities to go along with this good gas tank, as he's went the distance twice. One of his last fights was on UFC Fight Pass, so I really think this guy right now, especially with his victory over Patterson, I believe there's some eyeballs on him. So although his last fight was tough, it was a war, it wasn't one-sided, I believe he did enough to get the win. And I would say another victory tops, if not sooner, but at least at minimum one more fight, and I see him getting the call. Next on the list, fighting out of Kyrgyzstan, Alibek Mamashev, 27 years old, 5'10", 170, 15-1. 15 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 5 TKOs, 10 submissions. Key victories, he got some nice ones. He's beaten Goiti Dazeb, who's 9-1, Sergey Morelov, who's 10-5, and Sayed Musaim Rabiev, who's 8-1. Other opponents, for the most part, have losing records, lower experience. Check out the 3 videos I've attached. After losing the first fight of his career, he's reeled off 15 straight victories and 1 draw over the last 16 fights, I believe. A few of these opponents were pretty solid. He shows power, wrestling, signs of ferocious ground and pound, and also some good submission skills with 9 rear naked chokes. Another high-level wrestler-based prospect. Interesting to see how he does now that he's in the very tough ACA promotion, as many other great fighters are. Excuse me. Next on the list, moving on to Brazil, Diego Piccini. 7 wins, no losses, 1 TKO, 4 submissions, 23 years old, 6 foot 170. 1A1 affiliation. Key wins, 9-3 Wellington Lopez, 5-3 Calvin Felipe, 8-4 Rafael da Silva. Very exciting human fighter, high-paced, athletic. He's got that classic Caparoa style. I love it. Throws kicks and punches from all angles, and likes to switch kick as well, and as well as a spinning back punch. So sometimes maybe a little bit too wild, but 23 years old. Hey, there's lots of time to tighten it up. He's got a very good slick submission game from both top and bottom positions. And his next opponent, I believe, coming up is against a decent opponent. It'd be interesting to see how he's going to do against the higher level folks. But again, lots of potential at 23 with his background, his size. Be interested to see how Diego does. Next on the list, one of my favorite guys in today's video, Seul Kim, fighting out of Korea. 29 years old, 6'1", 170, 10 wins, 3 losses, 6 knockouts. Korean top team. This guy's a brawler. He's knocked out UFC fighter Frank Camacho. He's beaten UFC vet Takanori Sato. He's knocked out Mohamed Grabli. Check out those 3 fights. They're all in the video section. Very, very good and entertaining fighter. Nice fit for the UFC, especially at this point in his career. He started out 2-2, and I believe he's gone 8-1 since over his last 9 fights. And won most of those fights in style from a stand-up position. He's a southpaw. He's got a great, powerful straight left. Man, he got a great punch. He's got that classic karate-style stance. Tons of great KO victories. Do yourself a favor. Check out the section below. Throws nice leg kicks. He's definitely stepped up his game in the last 4 or 5 fights of his career. He's very long, and he's got a long reach. And the big question for me is his wrestling and grappling abilities, because I haven't seen any of it. But nonetheless, with that classic karate style of power, people would love this guy. And, you know, a lot of Korean fighters obviously are becoming pretty popular today in UFC. So I've seen him lose a fight where he just got in a crazy brawl, and he's very tough because he took a beating in that fight. It was a number of years back. But this guy's a brawler with power. And if you don't like watching this guy fight, if you don't think he's entertaining, I mean, I don't know what to say. Tall, karate stance, southpaw, power. You know, so he'd be a good addition to any 170 division, Bellator, UFC. I'm not saying he's going to win a lot of fights there because he's a brawler, but sure would be entertaining, and he definitely can knock some guys out. Next on the list, another beast. Nassourdine Imavov, 25 years old, 6'3", 170, big welterweight. 8 wins and 2 losses, so don't let the record fool you. 3 knockouts, 4 submissions, MMA factory with the likes of Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane. Believe he was born in Russia. He fights out of France. Key wins and utter destruction of UFC veteran Jonathan Mounier at a fight in Canada. Check out that fight. I got the video in the section below. A 12-5 victory over Gregor Weibel and 4-1 Paul Lawrence. But check out that Mounier victory. Great fight. And again, don't let that 8-2 record fool you. After losing his pro debut, he's won 7 of 8 straight, and this guy is very slick on his feet. Watch his fight against Jonathan Mounier, and you'll see that he picked him apart. And on the ground, he throws some nasty freaking elbows. Takes his time when he gets his opponent hurt. He's very patient that way. He goes to the body, where his fight with Paul Lawrence ended with 1 body punch. Very, very slick and comfortable on the feet. The big question is his takedown offense and his wrestling. He has shown he can submit opponents and also get back up quickly. But it'd be interesting to see what he does against a high-level wrestler. Exciting fighter to watch. Would like to see him in there again soon against some tougher competition. But now that MMA is legal in France, he'd be a great fit today for a spot on the undercard. Next guy we're going to talk about, another exciting fighter, less experienced, but another exciting guy, Felix Klinkhammer. I believe he was born in Germany, fighting in England now, 5-0. Also a successful amateur career, 1 knockout, 4 submissions, 6'1", 170, 26 years old. London shoot fighting. Key wins, 7-5, laid Gihoni, and the rest of his opponents were lower level, less experienced. Check out the videos of this guy. You'll enjoy it. Very, very athletic, high flyer here. Switches stances, high kicks, spinning back kicks. And he's very fast and very exciting and dangerous. But with all that said, his bread and butter is the ground game, believe it or not. He has some great slams and takedowns, great ground and pound, and some very impressive submission victories. He ends fights very quickly. Could definitely see him getting picked up. I'd say another couple of wins. He's just one of that crowd-pleasing guys. Like when I first seen him, to me he looked straight stand-up, but then halfway through the fight he slammed his opponent and he just obliterated him on the ground. So he's a guy that's got an underrated striking game and a very splashy striking game. So hope to see him soon. Very entertaining guy. Next on the list, going back to Brazil, Gabriel Bonfim. Equipped samurai, 6 feet, 170, 22 years old, 10 wins, no losses, 2 knockouts, 8 submissions. Key victories, 8-4, Moqueira Roca, 6-4, Lucas Eduardo Silva, and 8-5, Gleverson Sampaio. The rest of his opponents, lower level, less experience. Gabriel is a young fighter with lots of room for improvement, but let's look at some of the stats. 10-0, 10 finishes. He's KO'd opponents before and has a great variety of submission wins. Like a lot of Brazilians, from watching, would say his ground game was his best weapon. Great scrambles and transitions well. Nasty guillotine, nasty rear naked choke, and can finish you from top and bottom positions. Then when I looked a little deeper, I found out he was a 2015 amateur boxing champ and also currently 5-0 as a professional boxer. So very awesome and impressive stuff. Having gone through all areas, even though he has a lot of room for improvement, I believe, he could potentially be a pretty exciting prospect. Next on the list, and we're moving along pretty fast, folks, but I do want to keep this video somewhat short. Alexander Verko from Russia, Team MMA Spirit, 23 years old, 5'11". I think his last fight was at 155, but he does fight at 170. 9 wins, 1 loss, 3 TKOs, 2 submissions. Key wins, Adigro Bar, 8-3. Ozan Alexander, 6-3, 9-3, Rene Rund, and 11-2, Ruslan Rakhmanov. Videos, There's some nice knockout videos of him attached below, and a couple of wars as well. Very, very aggressive striker, and he tries to take his opponent out of there very quickly. He seems like one of those guys that you won't see in a boring fight. And I believe, like I said, 155 for the most part, but he's fought at 170 as well. High volume of power punching, kicks, flying knees, heavy ground and pound, good takedown defense as well. Also showing some decent scrambles on the ground, and also has some wins via submission. He definitely has areas of improvement, you know, trying to get away from that brawling style, but it makes him pretty exciting. And I think win, lose, or draw, he put on some good fights in some of the bigger promotions. So hopefully this guy gets a shot. He hasn't fought in any like bigger organizations as far as, you know, organizations that are only big in one country. So there's still lots of room for him to step up his game and get some tougher fights. But nonetheless, an interesting guy. Next on the list, Tahir Abdullaev, fighting at Azerbaijan. Phuket type team. Very tough team. 5'8", 170. Again, another guy that's fought. Can fight at 155. 23 years old. 9 wins, 1 loss. 5 TKOs, 3 submissions. Key wins. Most opponents have been lower level experience or losing records. His only loss was against M1 champ and current UFC signee Roman Bagatov, who's unbeaten in his own right at 9 or 10-0. I got a couple of cool videos of him. One of a fight, one of highlights. Nicknamed the Tank. This is a young, aggressive, high action fighter. His age was really the reason I decided to include him. He's 9-1, but you know he hasn't fought the competition, and you know he looks a little wild at times. But he's only 23, so I decided to include him. He shows strong wrestling background. He's got great ground and pound submission skills. He's finished 8 of 9 opponents. Again, he does swing a little wild at times, maybe too aggressive with some looping punches, but that can be tightened up. High action, fun to watch. Potential for the next step with a couple of victories for sure. Next on the list, Aydi Surdu, 24, 6', 170, fighting out of Romania. MMA Transylvania, Cluj-Napoca, 10 wins, no losses, 7 knockouts, 1 submission. 2 wins over 16-9 vet Frazard Karderi and 11-2 Robert Voksibikov. Rest of opponents, for the most part, losing records. I think I got 3 or 4 cool videos of him in the section below. Another young talented fighter that's developed a bit of a local following. Primarily he uses his boxing. He's showing some decent takedown defense to go along with some ground and pound. But one area you may need to improve is defense against that low kick, even the low kick to the stomach. I've seen him get stopped in an amateur fight from a kick to the body. And I believe that's an area he can tighten things up. He looks for the most part like a boxer, but obviously he would have to improve in that well-rounded game, or get his game more well-rounded to succeed at the higher level. But he's got power, good hands, and he moves pretty well. Another exciting fighter to watch. Moving right along. I know we're moving quick, folks, but we still got a number of fighters left to talk about, and I'm hoping to boogie on it here. Alibek Rasulov, 25 years old, 6 feet 170, fighting out of Russia. Gorets FT. Trains with many talented fighters such as UFC vets Magomed Umalatov, Razman Emanov, Rashid Magomedov, Gahad Akubetov. So extensive group of guys he trains with. 9 wins, no losses, 3 knockouts, 4 submissions. He also had an extensive, successful amateur career. Key wins: 12-5 Zamad Ibek, 5-2 Yunus Akhmedov, and 5-2 Mounir Lazzez. I believe he has 3 or 4 fights in the section below. A good, fairly young prospect, nothing flashy. That classic Russian wrestling style. Likes to get the fight to the ground. He has a nice single leg takedown, and will pull off a slam the odd time in the fight when the right opportunity comes along. On the mat, he's pretty dominant in control and advancing positions. Heavy ground and pound, and has a nasty Kimura. Both Kimura victories, I was a little nervous watching. I thought he was going to break his opponent's arm. This guy finishes fights, both with strikes and submissions, and he will get some big fights now that he's in the ACA organization. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to do. And that's one thing about this video. You know, a large number of these fighters may actually face off against each other in their current promotions. And it's cool someday down the road to see guys from videos end up facing each other, you know, on a pay-per-view card or something like that. So it's really cool. Next on the list, Kamal Magomedov, 28 years old, 5'8", 170, fighting out of Russia. Gladius Gym, Pat Gladius, 8 wins, no losses. Fair amount of amateur fights, 3 knockouts, 5 submissions. He's got a big KO win over 11-2 Ruslan Rakhmadov, and the rest of his opponents, for the most part, lower level. Check out the video section below. Another talented Russian fighter. Most of the fight footage you'll see is short, as he ends fights very quick. Powerful southpaw with good takedown defense, very athletic, and seems to be comfortable on the ground. With some slick rear naked choke victories, 3 in his career, and he can also submit you off his back. Throws flying knees, kicks, and punches from all angles, and he definitely goes in for the kill. Still room for some growth and improvement in some areas, but at 28, his time is now. Would be a good addition to any organization. Next on the list, fighting out of Georgia, Levan Chokheli. So, Sheerdog has him an 8-0. Tapology has him 9-1. But I talked to Levan himself, and he's 10-0. Apparently, Tapology has a mistake made, but he's 10-0 with 9 knockouts, 1 submission. 23 years old, 6 feet. Fights at both 155, 170. Key wins: 10-2 Konrad Dreista, which is a recent knockout victory he had. 5-1 Issa Esakov, and 6-2 Orkan Veliov. Check out the videos below. There's some good highlights of him showing some of his knockouts in his career. It's hard for him to get fights in Georgia and those places. It's, I talked to other fighters from that area, and it's hard to get it set up. The promoters are wishy-washy. Levan is starting to gather a following locally in his part of the world. He finishes fights, all of his victories to be exact, stopping all 10 opponents, 8 by knockout, 1 by submission. After starting his career against lower level competition, the level of his opposition has gotten much higher the last couple of fights, and he continues to win via stoppage. It's tough for prospects, to get fights in Georgia, like I mentioned. But, at 10-0, if you can win a few more fights, get to 11-0, 12-0, even 13-0, then when you get to that point, you're going to get some exposure no matter what. So, I see Levan being able to make the UFC for sure. Maybe he gets called from Bellator. Bellator's a European tour and stuff. But either way, I know Levan's ready. And after, talking to this guy, he's definitely got no problem stepping up if the call comes down. Next on the list, I believe this might be the youngest guy in today's video. Michael Morales fighting out of Ecuador, which is super cool. Winners Fight Team Extreme Fitness Machala, 19 years old, 6'3", 170, so a monster welterweight. As he gets older, you can see this guy moving to middleweight. 8 wins, no losses, 6 knockouts, 1 submission. Key wins: 6-0, 6-2 Leonardo Blasco. The rest of his opponents lower level, but at 19, very impressive. I dug up one of his fight videos. There's a few more online. This one I attached, I think, is a couple of minutes. Again, huge welterweight at just 19. Obviously, this guy's got a ton of room for improvement. He's still kind of raw, somewhat flat-footed, a little bit, not too bad. And on the ground game, he's good, but some room for improvement. But at 8-0 with 7 finishes at just 19, with his size, I had to include him in the list. He's got power. He can also submit you. But of course, at 19, he's still not yet fully tested or developed. But it would be great to see a prospect coming out of Ecuador to make the UFC. So give this guy a year or two, and man, this guy could be in his local area, could be up to 10, 15-0, and definitely would see him getting a shot. Next on the list, Uzair Abdurakov, 24 years old, 5'9", 170. Maybe transition into lightweight. He's 12-0 with 1 draw, 3 knockouts, 6 submissions, fighting in Russia, Sakha Wrestling Club. Key wins: 7-2 Ilya Kristay. Most opponents, again, lower experience, lower records. Couple of cool videos. Freestyle wrestling. He's still somewhat newer to the sport. I believe he began training just a few years ago, but he has transitioned very well. He racked up 12 wins to start his career. Over the past 2.5 years, stopping, again, 9 opponents. He's very relaxed and comfy on his feet, and throws some nice kicks, both low and high, and some decent wrestling, and also some nice ground and pound submission capabilities. We'd like to see this guy get pegged up to a bigger promotion. I know he's going all in, and see him get another fight, maybe a higher level competition to see how he does. But with another couple of wins, yeah, for sure. You start getting a 14 to 15-0, I can see him getting a call. Next on the list, sticking with Russia, Magomed Umalatov, fighting in Russia Eagles MMA, age 27, 6'1", 170, 8-0, it's 7 knockouts and 1 submission. Key wins, has fought a lot of tough competition. Hasn't fought a lot of tough competition, but he had a very tough, grinded out 3 victories in one night in the one-night tournament, so I'd include this guy on the list. He also had an extensive amateur career. GFC welterweight champ, European amateur champ in 2017. Still growing as a fighter, but you have to give this guy some credit for his record and finishing that one-night tournament. He finishes fights. He's got a little bit of power, good ground and pound, throws some nice elbows, and uses wrestling to control and finish his opponents. Again, still untested, but I want to include him in the list. Next on the list, Martun Mezhlumyan. Fighting in Armenia, Lion Air team, 26 years old, 5'11", fights about 170, 155, 9 wins, 1 loss, 5 knockouts, 2 submissions. He got a big win a recent win over Bellator veteran, 25-6 Valery McCrary, and that pretty much put him on the list. McCrary is a guy who beat UFC vet Anton Kovoyan. Most of his opponents besides that have been lower level. Eagle FC world champ. Some sites have him at 10-1, not 9-1, and not a ton of newer footage on this guy, but you'll see some of the video attached. He's a very aggressive fighter, a little bit flat-footed, but throws a lot of hard punches and throws a ton of elbows, standing elbows, and he's got some pretty good, hard, aggressive, violent ground and pound, good control on the ground, and he's win over 30 fight veteran. Vaquero Mature really, to me, put him on this list. So an interesting guy. You always haven't seen a ton of guys coming out of Armenia lately, but we know how tough those folks are, so it'll be another good guy to see, get a couple of wins and get some more mention. Next on the list, Aydi Umakhanov, fighting in the Russia Akhmed fight team, 26 years old, 5'11", 170. Also has fought at 155 too. May see him spending most of his career, in actually the most recent part of his career, down in that division. 9 wins, no losses, 1 knockout, 3 submissions. Key wins, 7-2 Levan Chokheli, 9-4 Alibek Rasulov, 15-5 Velasi Korokchev. So he's got some nice wins. At this point in his career, maybe better suitor for lightweight. He's been on a great streak since turning pro. Very patient fighter, decent striking, but wrestling and grappling is his go-to. Once on the ground, he controls his opponent, softens him up for ground pound to open up that submission opportunity. Still tons of room for improvement, but with his finishing capabilities, he's just finished 4 fighters out of 9 opponents, so there's still time to grow in that area. But a 9-0 with the fight club he's in, still 26, so not bad in age. This guy can improve a lot more, and you can see him get some bigger fights. Next on the list. The biggest reason I include this guy is because of his age to go along with his great record. But Abdurakhman Alimagomedov, fighting in a Russia KHK Dagestan, another great Dagestan fighter, 22 years old, 5'9", 170, 8-0, 5 submissions. Key wins, 8-6 Daniil Kilbev at GFC 21. The rest of his opponents, a lot of them had losing records. But again, with his age and his record, another young, wrestling-based Russian who is comfortable enough on his feet to close that distance from the southpaw position and get the takedown. Once on the ground, really takes over with his wrestling, smothering offense. And, hey, he can beat with that submission game. So really quick description of this guy, but a guy you should check out. Next on the list, sticking with Russia, Shamil Ramazanov, fighting at a Golden team, 26 years old, 6 feet, 170, fought at 170 and 185. 10 wins, no losses, 4 knockouts, 3 submissions. He's beat 21-7 Arsen Sultanov, 10-2 Uzair Abdurakov, 5-2 Supan Beganov, and 12-5 Zamil Yupsanov. High-level grappler who finds ways to win fights. Seems to be starting to get a little better his last number of fights, and he finds a way to get the job done, both from a striking and submission standpoint. Throws a decent low kick, and he's KO'd opponents in the past, so he does have good hard punching power. And he's gone the distance a few times, so he's got a gas tank too. He's another guy that we're not going to talk a ton about because we want to keep the video somewhat short, but a guy to check out at 10-0. Like I said, once you get to 10-0, 12-0, in this sport, you start getting lots of notoriety, and he's got some decent victories. The last guy we're going to talk about, and I got a soft spot for this guy, Herbert Batista, fighting in Brazil. Rene Vigo, Kerry team, 15 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 5 knockouts, 7 submissions, 29 years old, so right now is the time for him. 5'10", he's fought at 155 and 170, he's a big lightweight. Key wins, Georgi Oloyan, 11-3, Rodrigo Lido, 10-2, Andy Santos, 16-7. Big victory at ACA, Vishkan Magomedov, he was 8-4, and Welding Lopez, 9-3. Check out the video below. In that video, he's taking a beating and he found a way at the end of the round to stop his opponent just the last 10 or 15 seconds. So he's a real warrior, real tough Brazilian, gritty. After starting his career 1-1, he's only had 1 loss in his last 16 fights. And he's beaten lots of tough opponents. And at 29, he's not so much a prospect anymore, but his time is now. Very tough and gritty fighter. Again, check out that video, the video section at ACB 73. You'll see a real comeback. KO power, grappling, submission skills. You know, he can really compete wherever the fight goes, and he can absorb a lot of punishment. And another guy I'd like to see get a shot because of his age. The window for getting that call is starting to narrow up. I wouldn't say he's the most naturally gifted guy on the list, but he's definitely a guy that will put on some good fights and he'll show up to fight. This guy's not going to be in a boring fight, so check him out. Herbert Batista. I guess in closing now, folks, that's pretty much a wrap. I really want to thank everybody for watching. I think the next video will be out, probably have it out in about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do the flyweight division or the heavyweight division next. But please check it out. You know, this pretty much puts us almost at the midpoint. We got 4 videos out of 9 in right now. And again, you know, please hit the like button, subscribe, and, you know, check out these fighters. Hit these guys up on, not only myself, but hit the fighters up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All the eyeballs you can get is great for those guys. And I look forward to getting on to the next video in this series. So again, thank you very much for watching, folks, and we will see you in a few weeks. Please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, and also comment section below. Let's get some feedback. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you soon.